Hello friends, we are on day 6, I think, or halfway through the 12 days of Lullamas. Today we're just going to do my standard wrap up I do at the end of every month. Oh, I need to welcome people. I want to say specifically hello to Shakira, Sephora, Monique, and Bob. If that's your name, then you have to subscribe. What do I need to talk to you about? I just need to go through all of the books that you've already seen me read and review and remind you of my ratings. And then I think there's 5 at the end that I haven't talked to you about yet. The last one I did read because I realized I was about to hit 250 books and I needed to hit that final one to do an even number. So I read the shortest book on my shelves. I made a buzzword vlog. I read both of these and I gave them both 3.75 stars. The Anne, Impossible Imposter, and Hum. I did a Goodreads video where I read 13 books from all different categories, and I read Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan and gave it 4 stars. The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer and gave that 3 stars. My 2 favorites, Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney, I gave 5 stars. Until Summer Do Us Part by Megan Quinn, I gave 4.25 or 4.5. I don't actually remember. My other favorite, Cursed Daughters by Oyin Ken Braithwaite, I gave 4.25, I think. And then Woodworking by Emily St. James, I gave a 4. The Correspondent by Virginia Evans, I gave a 3.75. And The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow, I gave a 4 in the moment, but I can't stop thinking about this book. And I think I'm giving it a 4.25. I also read The Bewitching by Sylvia Marina Garcia. I gave this a 3, very rude, and Amity by Nathan Harris, which I gave a 4. My Christmas books want me to talk about them. I read 6 books in a little holiday vlog. One of them was The Kill Clause, which I gave a 3, and then Miss Winter in the Library with a Knife, that I gave a 3, by Martin Edwards. I read Secret Santa by Sophie Jomain. I gave this 2 stars. Hark the Herald Angels Scream, an anthology edited by Christopher Golden, I gave 2 stars. Good Spirits by B.K. Borison, I gave 3 stars. And I read Christmas with Kris Kringle by Keisha Thompson and gave this 3 stars. Now on to the 5 books that I haven't told you anything about. Put in the comments what you think my ranking is going to be for these books. Like which one was my favorite to my least favorite before I tell you. We have Persephone's Curse by Katrina Leno, who I've loved multiple books from before. Exit West by Mohsen Hamid, which has been recommended to me for years. Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider, which I pulled out of my members TBR jar for the month. Coexistence by Billy Ray Belcourt, which was a book on my 25 and 25 that I needed to read for my TBR closet, and I finally did. And then 50 Ways to Protect Bookstores by Danny Kane, which is the shortest thing that I own. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I'm gonna put it in order of my favorite to least favorite, I guess. So Persephone's Curse by Katrina Leno was my favorite. I gave this 4 stars. It's the perfect, just like the cover suggests, winter holiday kind of vibe. It is lightly speculative, like all of her books are, lightly paranormal. Not all of her books, but I think most of her books. I don't want to say all of them because maybe I'm forgetting something. But we have 4 sisters, and as I was reading it, I was like, oh my god, this is like Little Women, because it's just something you want to read in winter. 4 sisters, just their bond, but like also how easily you can hurt somebody when you're that close to them. Like they're your biggest champions, but your biggest haters could be at the same time. And it just gave me all those vibes. And then like halfway through the book, it mentioned Little Women. They were all gathered around reading Little Women together. It was so cute. But there is a ghosty paranormal element to this. So they have been told their entire lives that they are descendants from Persephone, and anytime something happens in their life, they're like, oh, that's because you're a descendant of Persephone, blah, 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 blah. Here's how your future's gonna be because you're a descendant of Persephone. And there's this ghost that lives in their house who they all have a kind of relationship with. They can all see and talk to. It kind of reminded me of reading A.M. McLemore's books because they often do the sister dynamic. I'm thinking of one specifically where like one of them is in love with someone specific, and all the sisters kind of have to contend with that relationship. And in here, one of the sisters is in love with the ghost and reveals that to the others, and they're not all necessarily supportive, or they're questioning a little bit, and the ghost and the sister disappear. And then a lot of the book is them trying to figure out where she went, if it's, you know, in real life she ran away, or if it's into another realm. And it was all just very low drama at the same time. It was a really chill, like perfect holiday kind of read. You had moments of them reconnecting, finding out family secrets, but in like a nice, calm kind of way. Okay, next favorite, I guess I would put 50 Ways to Protect Bookstores. I don't know, I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I gave it a 4 because I didn't feel particularly impressed by the writing in any way, but Danny Keane has written other things like How to Resist Amazon and Why, and I think this same book just expanded upon. This was the perfect list of things, you know, if this has never occurred to you before, how to be in support of your local bookstore beyond just going to your local bookstore and shopping there. It was each little point has a small paragraph. The ones that feel like they needed expanded upon did, and then certain ones didn't feel like they really needed a paragraph alongside, so they were a little bit shorter. But we have things like buy non-book stuff from bookstores. This is something really important, and I feel like some people don't really think about, maybe if you've never worked in retail, but a lot of things are specifically designed to be sold in bookstores, or there's just stores in general, to be marked up, or because you'll make a bigger profit on that than even the main thing that the store is selling. Because as I think most of us know, books are not a big income generating thing, especially when you have competitors out there. So it's hard for indie bookstores to survive. And this gives a list of things like buying gift certificates or shopping, not just in the holiday season for holiday gifts, but maybe in summertime, go and buy some of your holiday gifts ahead of time, because like 50% of a bookstore's revenue happens in the last couple months of the year. And, you know, buy online and use Libro FM and all of these things. But also it's about how not just us as people, but policymakers can affect bookstores and keep them in business. Like, you know, universal healthcare being a thing would help everybody, especially people who work at bookstores who don't have the ability to have healthcare and insurance within the company. So that's important to, you know, retain employees and to make people have more money for books, etc. Then obviously it's important for you to then be involved in your community and be involved in politics and vote for those changes you want to see, etc. And I think this was perfectly adequate for what it is. Next up, I've got Coexistence by Billy Ray Belcourt. This is a series of short stories, and how would I describe this? It's about, like, every character is indigenous, and it's about I guess it's like about coexistence. Like every single story has something to do with coexistence, either how an indigenous person feels coexisting in the world with non-natives and natives, how they coexist in the same country, on the same land, how someone in this story was coexisting with a roommate or with a classmate. There was a lot of relationships in here. Pretty standard. If you like other Billy Ray Belcourt, would definitely recommend. There was like a lot of sexually explicit stuff about having sex, preparing for sex, different relationships, very gay. One of the stories was quite a bit longer, and it was an exploration of this specific relationship, and there was something in it that I really loved, quote wise. I gave this a 4, maybe like a 3.75. I don't think I liked it as much as other Billy Ray Belcourt, about how you get kind of complacent in a relationship. And the quote said something about how it was no longer an event when they were in the same room together. And I thought that was just the whole kind of paragraph surrounding that was really poignant. They were all totally unique stories. They were all written kind of differently. One felt like it had chapters within it. They just all had different kind of perspectives. Stylistic choices were different, and I like that one. Then we've got Exit West, which I gave a 3.5. No one is surprised. Metal Slinger is last. This one I think had a great intent and fantastic things to say, great messages. Like I always say, I don't know if the writing was really my style in here, and I don't know exactly what it was, but I didn't leave it feeling really impacted in the way that I have with similar types of stories. So this follows a relationship between Said and Nadia. They are in a war-torn country and they want for a better life. They want the world around them to be better. They find little pockets of time to be together. And it's just exploring their relationship, like the ups and downs of it as they first meet. You get to see how enthusiastic they are to be together, and then how determined they are to be together, and then how complacent they get being together. And as they move and they try to find a world that is safe for them, they start to like have differing opinions about the world that they live in, or the life that they want to have. I really liked the structure of the book because it felt representative of what was happening. Like we would be in the middle of a paragraph completely unrelated to anything like difficulty, like they were just having, you know, a conversation, and it would just slip in within the middle of a paragraph, like, and then one of their family members died, and we would move on very swiftly from that because that is war. Just having to continue the book and having to continue on with life when something so horrific has happened, but because everywhere you turn something horrific is happening. That felt very appropriate the way that it was written. I don't know if the writing style probably intentionally felt a little bit removed, I guess. I don't know. I loved Nadia as a character. There was this one scene where he was like, so do you want to marry me or not? And she was like, I don't know. And he was like, okay. Even though you can tell they're so passionate about each other and they want this future together, it's like they really can't necessarily commit because you don't know what your future looks like. But also she was just kind of badass and always very genuine and just said whatever was on her mind at all times, and I can see what he saw in her, and I had a good time with it. Like a 3.5 is not a bad rating, obviously. Now Metal Slinger, I just finished this, so I didn't decide a rating, but I know it's lesser than all of these other ones. I'm gonna say like a 3, actually. I don't think I want to go into the 2 arena, but what I'll say about Metal Slinger, I never read the synopsis of this. It was pulled out of my members TBR jar and I had to read it in December. And this is the type of book that before I had read any romantasy, this is what I assumed all romantasy was. And this might be a spoiler because, like I said, I didn't read the synopsis. So let me explain to you what I thought every romantasy was. A girl from a lowly part in society is in love with a guy from higher in society, and he's like a prince, and he's like has all of these, she's gonna have all these opportunities because of him. And then somebody else arrives and they're like, oh, you're not actually a part of this world. You're secretly from this other world, and I'm going to take you back. And now there are these two worlds battling, and two maybe like creature or magic or power that have always fought against each other. And she was with the prince here, and then she finds out, oh my God, the guy who stole her away is also a prince in the other world. But guess what? She's also a princess, and she has all these powers she never knew, and now she has to fight and battle and take on society. But her other previous life is always calling back to her and wants her to fight for them, and she has to realize who was actually the bad guy and good guy, but maybe there's no bad guy all along. And that's what I thought romantasy was. And in this case, that's what romantasy was. Why I could definitely see why this might have been recommended to me personally is, for one, there is this bond that's talked about. There's fated mates, which is something that's interesting to me. And I've said this so many times, I feel like this year, but I love the dynamic where people are bonded or sired, and so they don't fully know all the time. And it creates this tension, I think that's what it is for me, that they don't know if the other person is genuinely doing something or saying something or feeling something because they're bonded or because that's how they actually feel, and they have to contest with all of these feelings. Another thing that I love is like mind communication, and this has that in a really interesting way where I don't know if this is a spoiler. This whole review is probably a spoiler, but it's described as like they can, I don't know. It was kind of like there was aura stuff discussed. So I imagined in my head, she's like, imagine her like lying down and visualizing wanting to be with the guy, and he's in the next room. And so she can kind of like put herself in that room and she can see everything that's happening around, but no one can see her. But because they have this bond, like he can kind of see her, but I think she's like kind of see-through. I don't really know. I'm sure it was described and I just kind of glossed over it. But so there was this one, I will say, really sexy scene where she's like climbing on his lap when he's having this very important discussion, and they're almost like getting it on while she's kind of invisible and they can only communicate in their minds, but in reality she's in the next room. I really liked that, but that was one of the only scenes that I really enjoyed. But because their dynamic did give me the ick, I didn't find it cringy. The steamy scenes didn't make me uncomfortable. Like I have to give it a 3 for that, because so much romantasy is like, it's just a little too much. It goes a little too far for my safety. But at the same time, things that I really didn't like about it, just the simplistic nature of these 2 different lands, and she's a princess and like everyone in this land used to know her and now she's back, but she doesn't know any of them. She has to learn all of these things. She does come from a land of, you know, starvation, and she's in now a land of opulence. It's just such a standard story, and the way she talks about it, especially, it just felt cheesy. It just felt a little silly, which isn't necessarily fair. It's just a me thing. But she was sitting at the table, and the way the scene went down, it was like a food was placed in front of her, and she said there was these flat little baked goods. They call them pancakes. And it was so stupid. Like you could have just given it a fantasy word or like described something differently, but just interjecting real life stuff that she's never gotten to experience before called pancakes. It just felt really stupid. So it no doubt had elements I enjoyed, but it also wasn't very inventive. And yeah, I'm never gonna think about this again. I didn't even talk about the fantasy element where she people can sling metal and light. I am glad I read this. It was pretty fast to read considering how long it was. It was a nice way to end out the year. And those are the 5 books that I haven't talked to you about yet. But now I have, and now you know everything. So finally, we are gonna do a couple superlatives like I always do. Best book of the year, or best, hold on, you're gonna have to wait a couple days for that. Best book of the month, of course, was my only 5-star. Only 1 5-star in the entire month of December with 24 books. That's fine. Jane Austen's Bookshelf, fantastic. Best sequel, I didn't read a single sequel this month. Best audiobook, I guess I'm gonna say The Correspondent, because this is a full cast narration. I think that made it feel very alive as it's written in letters, and there was a lot of like dramatic voice acting, which is good. Biggest surprise, I think we all know what that one is. Like Jane Austen's Bookshelf, I guess a little bit of a surprise that it was a 5-star. It wasn't a surprise that I liked it because I like books about books. I just don't love Jane Austen. The biggest surprise was Till Summer Do Us Part, because I was certain I was going to DNF this. It's long. It is an author I've never even heard of before, and the reviews didn't seem the most encouraging, especially with somebody who's so picky about romance. But this was such a goofy, fun time that I'm so happy that I read it, and I will be reading more Megan Quinn. I just don't know why they're so long. Like, there's one I wanted to read for my winter Christmas Eve vlog. It was like 500 pages. I'm like, I'm not doing that at this time of year. It's too late. Biggest disappointment, I kind of want to say Secret Santa, but it doesn't really seem fair because like a lot of people were talking about in the comments, like they wouldn't really expect a high quality book to be published in this way. Like, it's for the gimmick, so what do you really expect? But it was a real flop. So I guess my actual disappointment is going to be Good Spirits, because like, yeah, I gave it a 3 and maybe I would have predicted it to be a 4. The Hope was definitely a 5. I've given this author a 4 before, and I thought, you know, when you add a speculative element into it where she can relive portions of her life, like that's my favorite thing. I just thought it was okay. Author I want to read more from, I don't necessarily think that Rebecca Romney is now on my radar because, like, I don't know what else she would write. But if we got other things like this, like, I can't think of another author, Virginia Woolf's Bookshelf, that I would read. If we had a whole series of books like this that explore things in this exact same way, then I would read more. The author I guess that I want to read more from is Alex E. Harrow, because Alex E. Harrow has been such a miss for me. Her and Rachel Harrison are two authors that I, at the beginning of the year, had like sworn off. I was like, I don't want to read these authors anymore because they keep flopping and everyone's obsessed with their books and like, I don't see it. But both of them this year, obviously Play Nice wasn't this month, but I think of both of them in the same category where I'm like, it just took a couple books and now I feel safe to continue with them because The Everlasting worked for me more than I thought. So I guess this is kind of a surprise at the same time. Best cover. Oh, best cover is easy. That's Persephone's Curse. I think this is so beautiful. The book I would recommend most, I want to see Jane Austen's Bookshelf. If you're somebody who thinks that nonfiction is only one thing and that you don't love nonfiction, but you love books, I really think that a lot of people could enjoy that because I did, even though I don't care for Jane Austen. Another one that I think I would recommend is Cursed Daughters. Not that I agree with all of the Book of the Month picks, but there's a reason this is a Book of the Month pick. I think it has a wide appeal, and even if you have read other Oyin Kent Braithwaite, this is so incredibly different, and her vibe is just so different in all of her books. So this one, the classic like sisterhood story or family dynamics, if you like that kind of thing, Cursed Daughters does it really well. Best title? I looked at this beforehand and I don't think there's a single title this month that is particularly interesting. I think a lot of them represent the story fine, but they're all really basic, like Cursed Daughters, Jane Austen's Bookshelf, Exit West, Coexistence, Metal Slinger. Like they just kind of describe the book. So I'm going to say the Kill Clause because I do love a pun or an idiom. And that's the only one that really does anything for me here. Favorite character? I mean, I read a Veronica Speedwell, so Veronica and Stoker get to be my answer yet again, and they're going to be my answer every single month as I continue through the series because I love them. But like I said, I also really liked Nadia from Exit West. She's somebody who stood out to me. That's it for today. That's it for the year, my final wrap up of the year. Tomorrow will be my final quarterly update of the year. Make sure you watch because it's going to be a good time. Maybe there'll be something in there for the few people who check it out. Because at this time of year, like I always say, who's watching a quarterly update? You want to see the end of the year updates, but I, in my organized mind, have to complete it. So I will make it worth your while. Okay, see you then.